folks, welcome to your Fat Egg. Rangers versus Dynamo Kyiv in the Champions League third qualifying round, second leg at Hampden preview pod, coming to you in association with Gersnet and with Friends of Greg's. Yes, Friends of Greg's the Bakers. The next time the two-tier policing in this country allows somebody just to stand there for half an hour filming as somebody takes half an hour to pick up a bin and get it through the windows of a Greg's in any high street in Britain so they can get in there and start looting the pies and the sausage rolls and the steak bakes and the char grilled chicken oval bites. And do they still do the wee apple turnovers? You get the cream in them and the icing on the top. I guess one of them as well, a can of Coke. Well, then we will be there. The Friends of Greg's will be there, and we will form a human shield outside. We will interlink arms more tightly than the lattice work on a vegan curry bake to prevent the desecration of basically my entire belief system. When you attack Greg's, you attack my family, you attack everything I hold sacred, you attack my way of life. Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum. See, when folk are looting Greg's and Lush, it's fucking Alds the Bakers and Semichem that you want to be looking at. They're the ones that have employed Steve Bannon, obviously, to create this kind of binary situation where we're all fighting with each other. I mean, Rangers, we're immigrants. We're the immigrants. We've had to... Our home is not safe. We've had to leave our home. We need shelter somewhere. We needed somewhere to take us in. And yes, we don't really understand the culture of the place that we've had to move to. We're maybe a bit disrespectful for all the men that wear skirts and sing songs about deers, female deers, doe deers that they want to talk to for some reason, and they want to aver to peers of the realm that they can indeed boogie. We don't understand all that kind of thing, and it's a bit disrespectful though for us to go along there and wave flags of our people, of our country, and start singing songs about Ibrox Stadium is calling me and I'm coming home. Why don't you go home? Why don't you go home? Because we can't, because the steelwork's not finished yet. We need to find sanctuary, and thank goodness we found asylum at Hampden, but I can't get too sanctimonious because I have made a massive mistake. Like all these politicians, like all these Elon Musks and Hamza Yousafs and Nigel Farage and Richard, all these people that are just causing so much division in the world, I have made a mistake, but I'm going to be different. I'm going to admit to it. I'm going to come clean. I'm not going to double down and blame somebody else, but I think it was actually your fault. And I made a lot of mistakes, as you might have noticed in Saturday's reaction pod to the 2-1 home win at Hampden over Motherwell. I was talking about Bolivar Road or Bolivar Street. Now, that street you can see coming in for Prospect Hill Road. You can see it from the back of the top tier of the South Stand, which is where I was on Saturday. It's Bolivar Terrace, and I was talking about Rangers getting put out the Challenge Cup by Queen of the South in 2011. It's 2012. I mean, every Rangers fan has it burned into their memory. A traumatic memory, but you're never going to forget it was 2012-13 season was our first as a demoted club in the bottom tier. I think we could play in the Challenge Cup, but that's, for some reason I was talking about 2011. I couldn't remember the time of any of the substitutions. I couldn't remember any of the incidents, the major incidents in the game. I couldn't remember the details. I couldn't remember that it was somebody put a cross in for, was it Yilmaz put the cross in, and it was, I still can't remember, Diomande tried to header the ball. I've watched it on Sports Scene. I still have kind of deflected off his shoulder, and then it was Dessers that put it in. I remember Czerny getting the goal. That's not something you're going to forget in a hurry. But I had forgot all about Czerny's brilliant Iniesta-style ball that he played through for Scott Wright when Scott Wright went round the keeper and he still got cleared off the line. Then Dessers hit it and it cleared off the line. But I was forgetting all that stuff on Saturday. I couldn't get the details because me, who Mr. Woke Happy Clappy had been telling you all that the move to Hampden will be fine. It's actually going to be really interesting. If we just be positive about it. I'd been telling you how, I know it was embarrassing for the club. It's a bit of a wreck. It's certainly inconvenient for the supporters. But this is just the way it's been since 2012. In fact, this is the way it's been through the entire Rangers history. I mean, we didn't even know that we were formed in 1872 until about 1973. It's one of these things. Rangers are just a bit crazy, aren't we? The year we won the Cup Winners' Cup, the season we won the Cup Winners' Cup, we get beat 3 times at home by Celtic before September that season. We couldn't get into the final of the League Cup or the Scottish Cup. And it was just absolutely crazy. That's just how Rangers operate. The season we won the league title unbeaten, there was no fans at Ibrox, no fans anywhere. We played in front of an empty stadium. This is just the kind of thing we do. And I thought it would actually be quite interesting. But you all knew that it was going to be an absolute nightmare and a total pain in the neck. So that meant when you turned up on Saturday, you were like, nah, we knew it's going to be a nightmare and a pain in the neck, but let's just watch the game. I didn't. The me who'd been saying it'd be fine, it'd be great, it's going to be quite interesting. It's semi-historic. it's another chapter, it's another adventure, this great journey watching Rangers. And it didn't actually hit me until I took my seat and the game kicked off. I thought, this is wrong. We shouldn't be here. This isn't right. Rangers are playing a league game at Hampden. No, I don't like this. It's a bit like what the manager was talking about in yesterday's press conference ahead of looking ahead to the game against Dynamo Kyiv, and he was being asked about the atmosphere, and he was saying, yeah, it was a bit like kind of first day at school for a lot of supporters on Saturday, so they'll be used to it come tonight. Dynamo Kyiv will create a better atmosphere, and we will, and we need to. But I really was finding it like, it was all my pals. That was used to, I was in the same class as, the same part of the main stand, if you like, main stand front last season, but some of them were dotted about in different seats and all that, and you're getting you're chatting away and catching up with folk and all that kind of things. You're a bit distracted generally, and I'd seen a few of them during the summer anyway, but so maybe the Rangers doing the business during the first kind of 25 to 35 minutes of the game, I was still kind of in that situation where I was chatting, but no, it was mostly, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. This isn't right, so I'm sorry. You should have dealt with that. You knew about that. You knew it was going to be awful. But me, Mr. kind of, let's just enjoy it. It's going to be fine. Let me tell you lots of stories about Hampden. And amongst the many stories I was telling you about Hampden, this is the mistake that I have to own up to. You probably saw the chat about it all over Twitter today. Elon Musk was certainly mentioning it. I think it was the front page of the Sunday Mail yesterday, and definitely, on Sunday, and GB News probably had a section on it as well, but I didn't want to tell them. I didn't want to come out and make an official statement until I talked to you guys first, you folks who I owed the apology before anybody else. As part of me looking forward or pretending, kidding myself on that was looking forward to going to Hampden, I was saying, well, this is actually going to be, it's going to work out to my 150th game at Hampden, because I do the Footballogy app. Footballogy, you can count up all the games you've been to. It's another way of enjoying games, even if you've actually, if you've lost the game, you can say, well, that was game number 158 that I went to at that particular stadium, whatever. I told you it actually worked out. The Scottish Cup final, I thought, was my 147th game at Hampden. And then I went to the following week's game against Scotland against Finland, in the warm-up for the Euros. So, I thought it was going to be, I didn't even think it was that much. I just happened to mention it because I'm a bit of an anorak. Just a bit boring, really, not even as good as an anorak. At least they remember stats. I was like, well, it's going to be game 150. I thought it was going to be when I go to see Scotland in the Nations League. They're playing Poland or Croatia, and the two of them in September and October. Home games in the Nations League. If you've not seen this pod before, I go to the odd Scotland home game, and I say, well, that'll be good, but it's worked out quite well. It's actually going to be Rangers that I see in game 149 and 150 at Hampden, and game 150, as I've known for the past weeks, it was going to be Dynamo Kyiv. Absolutely a massive, epic club. Us and Dynamo Kyiv, even if you're neutral, we are two epic clubs. Probably, I think, the two biggest clubs never to actually reach the final of the European Cup or the Champions League, the ones that are chapping on the door hardest. And here we are meeting at Hampden, which has hosted the 1960 European Cup final, the biggest attendance ever for any of the European club finals, 127,621 people in the 18th of May 1960. No more than 14 minutes between any of the goals, and that's 7-3 win for Real Madrid over Eintracht Frankfurt. The ball was made by, it's a Tomlinson tee, and it was sold by a shop in Dumbarton Road. I used to know the name of the sports shop. Anyway, it's quite significant. Hampden, I love Hampden. It's also held the biggest crowd ever for any European club match when the second leg of Celtic versus Leeds United in the 1970 European Cup semi-final. So Rangers playing Dynamo Kyiv at Hampden. Absolutely fantastic for somebody like myself who loves the Rangers and who loves European football, who loves European finalists in particular. Dynamo Kyiv played in and won 2 Cup Winners' Cup finals. Ourselves have been in 5 European finals. A couple of you guys, instead of just blanking me like you should, a couple of you get back to me and were like, oh, congratulations, big man. I hope you enjoy your milestone. That's like, I hope you enjoy your 150th. I'm just being really boring, but you guys are encouraging me. Thanks very much. So I feel extra guilty in the fact that I'm wrong. It's game 149 at Hampden tomorrow night. Because of the whole Hampden thing, because I was convincing myself that I was so excited about seeing Rangers playing at Hampden for a few games, maybe more than a couple of months. And Friday night, it became the early hours of Saturday morning. I wasn't really sleeping. So you have that thing where you're on the bog pan, for want of a better phrase, and you're looking at the phone. Footballogy. I thought, well, it breaks down all the games. How many games have you been to at one stadium? So Hampden, And I've got the 148 it was at that stage. Before I go to game 149, I thought it was going to be against Motherwell. I thought, how many has been Scotland games and how many have been Rangers games? Because I've been to Olympics. When the Olympics were in London 2012, they had football matches at Hampden, men and women's games. I attended them both. I was at the Amateur Cup final with Colin, a legendary groundhopper, Colin, some man. I went to the Amateur Cup final, Colin Dunn. Last season it was. I'd never been to the Amateur Cup final before. I was wanting to go to the Scottish Amateur Cup final. Went that at Hampden. I was at European Real Madrid against Bayer Leverkusen 2002 Champions League final, 2007 UEFA Cup final, Sevilla against Espanyol. What else have I seen? I see Women's International, Scotland against Jamaica, and the game before they went off to the World Cup, the biggest crowd ever for a women's match in Scotland. That was great. So it's not just Rangers in Scotland. I've seen it at Hampden. I ended up at when Hearts beat Hibs 5-1 in the Scottish Cup final. I ended up at a Jambo gave me a ticket for that. I'd never been to an Edinburgh Derby, so I thought, what the hell, I'll go along to that. And I was counting up, and I still couldn't tell you how many. I can't break it down now, because as I was working my way through the list, I just got kind of near the bottom. Going back in time, Rangers versus Dundee United 86-87 League Cup final was in there twice. I doubled one. It was in there twice. It was on the database, but when I first got Footballogy, it wasn't on the database, so I'd put it in manually. And then at some point, I'd obviously clicked it on the database, and I thought it would cancel. I thought you couldn't get it on twice on your total, but it had mine. When I put it in manually, I put in the exact attendance as well, because I'm boring that way. I think that's made it different. And I went through the rest of the list. The rest of the list is genuine, but tonight, it's going to be game 149. Rangers Dynamo Kyiv is going to be game 149. I'm sorry. I really am. I'm sorry. It's I've got the imaginary wife here and the imaginary kids, and I'm standing at the front gate of my imaginary modest country mansion, and just I'll try to do better. No, I'm not going to resign. No, I will try to do better, and I'll learn my lesson and all that, and I'll learn my lesson when game 150 is actually against St Johnstone in the League Cup, 5:45 on a Saturday night, and a game that's live on the telly, so it'll be half empty. So that'll teach me. But the one thing is, Sergei Botac. Remember Sergei Botac played for St Johnstone? He played for the Dynamo Kyiv team that won, and he was played in that 1986 European Cup Winners' Cup final, the second time they won the Cup Winners' Cup, a majestic performance, 3-0 win over Atletico Madrid. He played in that game, and he also played in the game where the only other time we played the Dynamo Kyiv competitively, that legendary 87-88 European Cup game at Ibrox. And then he went to St Johnstone. Oleg Kuznetsov, he played in that 86 Cup Winners' Cup final team against Atletico Madrid in the Stade Gerland in Lyon, when we had a legendary 3-0 win in Europe in the Stade Gerland in Lyon, Lyon's old stadium. And then Atletico Madrid come back in the new stadium in Lyon, they had a legendary win in the final of another European competition against Marseille in 2018. But Kuznetsov, he plays in that game in 87-88 as well at Ibrox against us in the European Cup, and then he ends his career at St Johnstone after he comes to Rangers and has a terrible attack. I mean, he scored a goal against Celtic after that, but he was never quite the same player. But so there's associations there, because Dynamo Kyiv and Rangers are absolutely legendary, and I am going to make the same mistake again. I'm getting myself worked up about the fact that there's this massive game, Rangers at Hampden in Europe. Please tell me if I'm wrong, because nobody. I mean, I'm going to put it back on news like a proper politician, like one of the guys in the, an Elon Musk or something like that. Nobody told me. I said to you last week, I said the only other time I could think of Rangers playing Dynamo Kyiv, other than that 87-88 European Cup tie, was a friendly and a tour we made of the Soviet Union in the early 60s, where we played in Moscow, we played in Tbilisi, and we played in Kiev, and Dynamo Kyiv were the only team that we didn't beat on that tour. There's the legendary Stephen Miller of the equally legendary Rangers Archives. I think it was a Facebook page yesterday, 1990. We played them a friendly at Ibrox. They scalped us 3-1. I had no idea whatsoever. I had no recollection. I didn't even look at that and go, oh God, how could I forget about that game? I wasn't at it. I know that for a fact. But I had no recollection of that whatsoever. Cracking photograph Stephen had up there, and it was Oleg Kuznetsov tackling John Brown. What a tackle that would be. I was at San Siro in the 1990s, and I saw Giuseppe Bergami tackling Franco Baresi, and vice versa. Twice they had 50-50s in that game, and the whole San Siro shook with both of them. But this would have been even better as far as I'm concerned. Kuznetsov, in a tackle with John Brown. So check out the Rangers archives. And I know it's both of us are wearing Admiral kits, beautiful Dynamo Kyiv away kit. It's all yellow the top with the big D, the big communist fancy D that all the Dynamos all over the Warsaw Pact were wearing. It was in blue on the yellow and the blue shorts, and it was Admiral. And we were wearing Admiral at times. I don't know if it's a friendly that Admiral arranged, but by all accounts, they were 3-0 up against us at half time and took the foot off the gas for us to only get beat 3-1 in that game. So, yeah, we're all making mistakes. But the biggest mistake I am making probably is doing that thing again where everybody's talking about the money, and quite rightly, and everybody's talking about the need. It gets a bit kind of, I don't know, it's like your gaffer. We become like the gaffer, a pain in the arse gaffer at your work. It's like you've got to do this and you've got to do that, and to the point where you forget to enjoy the job. If it can be in any way enjoyable, it put you under pressure. I feel it's a bit like that way. Or it's like the need for the money for the Champions League group stages, and we need the extra 5 million we can get just for winning this game alone, and blah, 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 and we need to get the squad built up, and it's not good enough. And I know all that, we know all that, and I know that we do need to do these things. But you're in danger of forgetting the actual occasion, and I'm doing it again, I'm building up the Hampden thing. Rangers, tell me if I'm wrong. Like I say, we're playing a home game in Europe, anywhere other than Ibrox, for the first time in our history, our almost like 70-year history in European football. It must be the first time that we've done this. And I know we had that game against Anzi Makachkala of Dagestan under the little general, under Dick Advocat, his kind of last half season as actual manager at Ibrox. Now, because Dagestan was so kind of war-torn and dangerous at that time, and that's real parallels with the tie against Dynamo Kyiv, we were advised not to go to Dagestan. We wouldn't go to Dagestan, and they, as a result, wouldn't come to Ibrox. So we played them in Poland, just a one-off match. We played them in Warsaw. Funny enough, again, I mean, we were in Lublin last week, but great associations with this tie. But I think we weren't actually the home team, were we? So, and everybody else, it was a neutral thing. It was a one-off and a neutral base, but everybody else gets to do it. I mean, Celtic obviously had this, talking about them, they played in the 70s, they played Leeds, and I think they played Ajax as well, just like when they were rebuilding their main stand in the early 70s. They played European games there, but they also were at Hampden in 94-95 for the whole season, so they played a European tie there at that point, I'd imagine. And we remember Celtic had to play Atletico Madrid behind closed doors because in the 84-85 Cup Winners' Cup they had that game against Rapid Vienna where, I mean, it was a bit of a con. Rapid Vienna player hit the deck when a can for the jungle had landed about 25 yards away from him, but it got the game replayed because they would get gubbed that night, Rapid Vienna, and it went back to, but Celtic couldn't replay it at home. They couldn't play their home leg at Parkhead. They had to move so many miles away, and so they went to Old Trafford. So they were playing at home somewhere else in that occasion as well. Rapid Vienna wearing an away kit, obviously, that night when they put Celtic out in the replayed second leg. But Rapid Vienna famously wear green and white, don't they? Sometimes they wear green and white hoops as well, Celtic green and white. And Old Trafford, Manchester United had done the same thing, like about 8 years earlier, when they had to play Saint Etienne, a certain distance away from Old Trafford. That was their home leg, and they've moved it to Plymouth. So Saint Etienne, you're playing Allez les Verts, one of the most famous green shirts in the world, but they played at home park, Plymouth Argyle, playing green and white as well. So it's a green and white thing about them moving away. Hibs played, they actually played, that doesn't really count. They played at Firhill in the first ever European Cup in 55-56 against Djurgårdens of Sweden, but it was the away leg. Djurgårdens, because of the winters and something, they moved it to the winters in Sweden. They moved that tie, their home tie, to Firhill and played, just to save money, played the home leg at Easter Road. But Wraith Rovers played Bayern Munich at Easter Road, didn't they, in the UEFA Cup? Jurgen Klinsmann and all that, I think he scored. Whereas Wraith Rovers had played an Icelandic team, I think, in the earlier round at Starks Park. Queen of the South, and I was talking about them last week, they played, I thought it was Norrköping, but they're Swedish. Nordseeland, I think, of Denmark. They played them. I think it was qualifying for the UEFA Cup by dint of losing to us. Was it in the Scottish Cup final? I think it was 2008-2009 season anyway. They played that at the Shibre Excelsior Airdrie because too much terracing at Palmerston Park at the time. And I was talking about Motherwell having played Llanelli and Stoy Bucharest in Europe at the Shibre Excelsior. So I think it's time we did. I think it's time we did this. We did this thing where we didn't play. We don't play at our own stadium, a home tie in Europe. I find it quite exciting, but didn't I also find that if you've been watching Jersnet for me on Jersnet for far longer than it's healthier than you, when we go into the Champions League in 2022-2023, it was the most nervous I've ever been. This is what we're trying to do this season. Ultimately, is getting to the Champions League group stages, the new Champions League group stages, the Swiss system and all that, which I won't get into just now because it's fate tempting apart from anything else. Also, just I'm going to go off and one about that. But I remember when we played PSV Eindhoven, we drew 2 each at Ibrox, and I remember sitting there before that second leg over in Eindhoven under Gio, and we hadn't qualified for the Champions League since the group stages since the events of 2012, and it's the most nervous I have ever been before a Rangers game in my life. Simple as that. I felt as if we didn't make it then, it was going to be Celtic were just going to get too far ahead of us financially. And when we won, it was one of the happiest. It was a phenomenal. We won 1-0 in Eindhoven, and it was just absolutely amazing, going crazy. Really, the relief oozing out of me. A fantastic performance by Rangers as well. That's it. I can relax. I never have to worry about Rangers ever again. And then we went into the Champions League group stage, and it kind of went a bit flat, didn't it? Let's just say that. It's almost like when you stop worrying, it starts going really wrong. And I remember being on Jersnet doing the preview pod. I think was it with Colin? It was Dougie involved. I can't remember. Ahead of us playing Liverpool at Anfield. And the first time we played Liverpool in that group, we played them at Anfield, and I just started crying. I know actually started, but my throat went dry and I choked when I started describing what Liverpool were when I was growing up. I wasn't a Liverpool supporter or anything like that, but no, Souness, Douglas, that team of the 80s, it was winning the European Cup, like, you know, 3 times in about 5 years or something like that. They were amazing. They were the best team in Europe, never mind the best team in Britain. And I used to be out my back door as a wee boy fantasising about scoring for Rangers against Celtic, yeah. But then we'd get into Europe and I would be scoring for Rangers against Liverpool into the Kop at Anfield. You know, just that, because to me that was the ultimate. And here I was going to be watching Rangers the following night. I wasn't going to be at the game, I was watching it on telly, but just to see Rangers. We didn't play Liverpool in Europe. We never played them in Europe before. We never really played them in any kind of meaningful competition before. And here we're going, and we were going, I want to see my team shooting into the cup. I don't even care if we get beat, we're going to shoot into the cup. We didn't have a shot into the cup. We didn't have, at no point in that game, and I've watched that first half back, did we actually have possession of the ball in the box at the Kop end of Anfield. That's how bad we were in the first half. And then, well, we're going to get to see them at Ibrox anyway. We've got Liverpool playing at Ibrox, and it was the worst night of my entire life. 7-1, there was no honour in that. There was no good. It wasn't about the occasion at all. So I've got to be really careful with this thing that I'm feeling about tonight's game, which is how momentous it is to be playing Dynamo Kyiv. Oh my God. I've talked about this in the preview pod for the first leg. It's, you know, Valery Lobanovsky, he died just a couple of weeks, it was the same month as the 2002 Champions League final when I attended that. Got to see Real Madrid playing Bayer Leverkusen, that kind of Real Madrid against Germans in the European Cup final at Hampden, basically. For me, it's a kind of revisiting of the 1960 European Cup final that I grew up thinking must have been the most amazing game of all time. And before the game, there's big pictures of Valery Lobanovsky up in the big screens. There was a minute's silence for him and all that because he's such a legend. Was it 3 times or something he was manager of Dynamo Kyiv? Twice he won the Cup Winners' Cup with them, 75 and 86. In between times he's managing the Soviet Union. They're playing beautiful football. And I remember Oleg Kuznetsov playing for the Soviet, because he looked so Scottish. Kuznetsov, ugly ginger guy, you know. Looks like an alcoholic as well. He just looked like a total bevy merchant, as ugly ginger Scottish guys do. I thought, he just looks ordinary, but he's what a player. Then I used to watch that team. I'd see Dynamo Kyiv on the television highlights in Europe, and then I would see the Soviet Union. It was Euro 88 in particular. They got to the final. I remember they beat Italy. It was men against boys in the semi-final. They beat the Dutch, who they lost in the final, of course, that famous Van Basten goal, but they beat them in the group stage of Euro 88 in the final. And I used to watch Kuznet, and that guy's amazing. You know, I see him playing for Dynamo Kyiv. He's amazing. Even when he played against us, and we beat them that night in early part of September 87. I just thought, imagine having a guy like that playing for Rangers. And he did. He signed for us and he played for us, you know. It didn't quite work out, but it was worth it, and it's an idea of the power that we had at that time. Because let's make no mistake, the same night Rangers famously beat Dynamo Kyiv, we lost the first leg by 1-0 in front of 100,000 over in Kiev in September '87. It was the first round of the European Cup, and Dynamo Kyiv had won the Cup Winners' Cup in amazing style 16 months earlier, when the Cup Winners' Cup was a really meaningful tournament. And then here we were playing them, and we beat them 2-0. You know, Souness shrunk the pitch and all that kind of thing. He moved the white lines in lengthwise on the pitch, and it was a hell of a tense game. And the first goal comes from their goalkeeper throwing the ball off one of his own players' backsides, and Mark Falco touches it in and whatever. It was an amazing night. I was in the West Enclosure. The same night we were doing that at Ibrox, Real Madrid, Emilio Butragueño, the vulture, was equalising for Real Madrid in Napoli, against Napoli, in the San Paolo over there, 80-odd thousand at the game. That was Maradona's Napoli, and that put them out, because Napoli had lost 2-0 in the first leg in the Bernabeu, and there was nobody there because of the ultras sour, the Real Madrid ultras had been causing big trouble. So the game was a few hundred folk there, less than 500 at the game. But that was when it was only the champions, other than the team that was holders of the European Cup. If they happened to not win the league the season they won the European Cup, every other team in the European Cup in those days, in Europe's top competition, the competition that is now the Champions League, was a champion. They were champions of their country. That's a big thing for so-called purists of the game. But it was it was quality, and yet that was it. Spain or Italy were out in the first round. It was bad enough. I mean, Rangers were pretty much the most powerful club in Britain at that point in time, particularly because of the ban on English clubs in Europe. The money we were spending in players with Souness playing for us, we were buying Terry Butcher and Chris Woods and all. You know the story. We're pretty much the most powerful club in Britain, and Dynamo Kyiv were just legends because the Soviet Union was still there, and right or wrong, they could keep all those kind of players, and they were a phenomenal, massive club. I think it's, as I say, the two biggest clubs outside. You've got Atletico Madrid, as I keep saying. They're the only team to have never won, to have played in more than two finals of the European Cup or Champions League without ever winning the trophy. So they're the trophy. They're the team that needs to win the top European club competition. I would say the club that's deserved the right to win it more than anybody else. Particularly when they lost two of those finals to Real Madrid. You know, that must be really painful. But I think in terms of getting to the final, two clubs have never made the final of the Champions League / European Cup. It's Rangers and Dynamo Kyiv. We must be the ones that's, you know, I mean, Celtic have won it and reached the final, so that makes it extra painful for us, since it's the most kind of hateful, one of the most hateful derbies in the world. And also we've been to the semi-final before, and the semi-final of the Champions League as well, semi-final European Cup, semi-final of the Champions League. We've been to 5 other European finals. Dynamo Kyiv, say, won their 2 European finals in other competitions, and 3 times they reached the semi-finals of the European Cup or the Champions League. So now I still think even though the haves and have-nots, the difference between them has become a chasm, I think we're still the 2 biggest clubs never to have actually made the final. And here we are having a kind of final, that's the way I see it, tomorrow night at Hampden, a stadium that has staged so many European finals, so many historic football matches. I think it's quite amazing. But also at that point in time, for one of us to be going out, Dynamo Kyiv or Rangers to be going out in the first round, was quite weird. And then the Spanish and the Italians, their 2 champions, Real Madrid or Italy, that was it. One of them was going out in the first round. Maradona's Napoli it was as well. So I think that was the night that the Champions League was born. It's kind of agreed that was the night the Champions League had to come into formation, had to come into existence, or else there was going to be a breakaway, because broadcasting rights were getting deregulated at that time. This is just Sky and all that's taken off. General globalisation, and the threat of a European Super League might have seemed greatest a couple of seasons ago, but it's been a threat that's been constant since at least then. And that's why UEFA have stepped in and made everything a league. We have got a Super League. No, Atletico Madrid spent £82 million on a striker today. £82 million would make Rangers guaranteed to win the Scottish League for the next 82 years. And Atletico Madrid aren't going to win the Champions League this season, or if they do, it will be a surprise. You know, not a great, it'll be against the odds, shall we say? And we were in it to start making that happen. That kind of chasm, and we wanted it to happen because we were so powerful, made so much money at the time. back in the late 80s, early 90s, but it was because these teams, the broadcasters are saying, we've got 80 million folk in this country, they're saying in Germany, who want to watch their team, or a team from their country at least, in the European Cup. We can't have them going out in the first round. That's it. And eventually they get 2 teams in, the runners-up one, and then it's 3-4, and we get the ridiculous situation that we've got just now where UEFA are changing the entire competition just to ensure that the top 5 countries can have more clubs in. But nevertheless, we want to get in that competition. We want to get back in that competition. But I think if we concentrate too much on that, we will lose tomorrow night. As the manager was saying in his press conference yesterday, he was asked by Ronnie Esplin, the £5 million that you're going to get for winning this game, if we get through this tie alone, you're guaranteed £5 million just for getting into the playoffs. Would that going to be enough to make any significant changes to your transfer? But no, really, that's not going to change the transfer targets. That's not really going to help us that much. And then he was asked, right, okay, well, if you get it's between 16 million and 29 trillion billion pounds that you're supposed to get, the war chest that the fabled war chest that you're always going to get if you get into the Champions League group stages, is that going to make a difference? And he started kind of saying, well, yeah, but we won't get it until, the second leg of the playoff isn't decided until 27th, 28th of August, so the transfer window shuts at the end of August, so you're not only going to get enough time to use it properly. And you're thinking, Niels Copper and that, they must have a plan. They must have something. You've got your. He said this in a previous press conference that you do have 2 or 3 different transfer budget plans set up, but he was kind of going away from that today. He was kind of eschewing that today, and I think this is him preparing us for the worst. And the worst would be dropping into, if we go out tomorrow night, there's a very good chance we could. This tie is just in the balance, as the manager was saying. We're not favourites. It's just in the balance. Because we drew 1 each in that first leg. If we go out tomorrow night, we drop straight into the Europa League group stages. And, when you consider not that long ago, we're having to fight through 4 qualifying rounds to get into the Europa League group stages, and now we've reduced it to a booby prize. That's a compliment to how far the club has come, something they're not always given credit for. But we're getting to the stage where Celtic are already in those Champions League group stages, off the back of our hard work on the coefficient, it has to be said. But because they're already in there, we need to keep up with that. We need to keep up with them in financial terms and also prestige terms. It really is. It is the top competition. It's where we want to be. So I think the manager was kind of preparing us, always making it. It was a kind of like, we'll get that money, but we won't have time to spend it. Really, a bit like, if you win the lottery in November, it'll be crap because Christmas will seem rubbish. You only get a few presents, but you go to £1 million in November. It was a false argument as far as I'm concerned. I think we could spend it in January if the worst came to the worst, maybe even next season. Just get in there and get that money, but we need to take it one match at a time. It's Dynamo Kyiv tomorrow night. I think there's been incremental improvement since the first game I've watched this, including the close season, was the Union Berlin friendly. We were great going forward. We were an absolute joke at the back. We then played Hearts at Tynecastle. We were dominated slightly in the first half without being played off the park, and then we dominated the second half without playing Hearts off the park, and it was 0-0. So it was a slight improvement, a bit more stable. At least there was a clean sheet to take out of that one. We then had Dynamo Kyiv away in Poland, and we were kind of eaksy-peaksy with them in the first half, although they scored the goal, but we'd hit the post and all that and looked really dangerous. And then the second half, we get the goal after dominating that second half, and then on Saturday there, we blew Motherwell away first 35 minutes, albeit tiny little problems at the back, enough to give away a goal, but we looked totally dominant for the first half hour or so. Kind of boring middle part of the game, and then getting towards the last 10, maybe even the last 5 minutes, we started to kind of lose our way and look at really ropey. But generally, there's a slow, incremental improvement in the overall performance. I think that's more that you can't really ask for much more than that when our transfer business has been so slow. It has been so slow. We need this money. We do need the $5 million just from winning this game. We do need that. That's Lawrence Shanklin right there. We do need the 16 to 25 billion pounds that you're going to get, 16 million to 25 billion pounds that you're going to get for getting into the Champions League group stages. We do need to do this, but we can only do it by concentrating this game. Start at the back. Jack Butland, he's great, isn't he? He was very Jake Humphrey, what is that? High achievement podcast, whatever it's called. He's very I don't like him. I don't like Jack Butland as a person, and I think if you want to talk the way he was talking today, like the club had to kind of tell him. I talked to the directors and I talked to the manager, and I thought the direction they convinced me to stay. He is our best asset, I would imagine, right now. But I think when
you lost as a Scottish Cup final. It wasn't just your fault. A lot of people were to blame for that goal. But when you had an absolute rick that cost us a Scottish Cup in the last game of the season, you want to maybe rein in the just positive thinking type of thing. He comes across quite middle class. So maybe his dad was a toolmaker. Maybe his dad worked in the mines. I don't know. And it's good to have people who are positive and agree. But I don't really like him as a person, the way he comes across. But maybe that's exactly what we need. Exactly what we need. He's definitely a very good goalkeeper, though I don't think he's as good as he thinks he is. But he's definitely going to be in goals, and he's definitely done well this season. He did cracking save on Saturday, which definitely saved his point, and that's what it's all about. I'm just being a bit childish. At the back, that's where the problems start. We've got Leon Balogun is out. He's the only player who's out from the weekend, and he did have a very happy game, and he did come on anyway at the weekend. And I can't really blame him, Leon, because at his age, he needs to be playing regularly for the B team or for the first team. He needs to just be playing regular football. And it's a real kind of washing machine level of mixing up the centre halves these days as we try to get in proper, and he comes in and an own goal, although people generally thinking it's between Tav and the other centre half, John Souttar, as to who was to blame for that goal Motherwell scored the other day off the feet of Robin Proper, our new centre half, but he only got, was it 70 minutes or something, Proper? I think we're going, with Balogun being out, we're going to have to start him tomorrow, and I think it'll be him. I can't see Ben Davies coming back, who people are even less trusting of as a centre half, so I think it's going to be Proper and Big Souttar at the back tomorrow. John Souttar scored at Hampden against Denmark as well, so there you go. It's Robin Proper's only scored against a wee Mickey Mouse team like Rangers, so he's definitely worth sticking back. Tav, the captain, very rusty. You can see why he was to blame. He certainly played his part in not stopping the cross coming in from Motherwell's goal on Saturday. This time last year, though, this stage of the competition, the two qualifying games we played this round, the third qualifying round, and the playoff, we scored 4 goals in the Champions League last season. Tav scored 3 of them. That's before we get into what he did, getting us to. We scored 2 goals in the Champions League group stages. The season before that, Tav scored 1 of them. We scored, just every game that got us to that final in Seville. He scored from the knockout rounds onwards. He's a European legend, Tav. He's an amazing nous. So he's getting fitter. You can see he's getting more fitter by the game. So we need to have him, and Yilmaz, he's as ropey as Tav at the back when it comes to defending, but even better than Tav, I think, at the moment, going forward, in terms of physically going forward, and the two of them are reining the balls in the first leg against Dynamo. The sitting midfield, I'm thinking, obviously, Diamandi and Barron, they're getting to the point where they're probably going to need a rest, but they're young, and they're very energetic, and they've been generally fantastic. This season started, really. There's a big problem, I think, space-wise at the back. I saw Conor Barron came in, one bit I did pick up on Saturday, Conor Barron came and sat back a bit in the second half and when Dujon Sterling came on, and it seemed to, does that mean he was playing 6 and Sterling and Diamandi were playing as 8s, or were they 2 10s? I don't know the digits, ways of describing it, but he was sitting in front of the defence and they two were up supporting the attack. More, so I don't think we'll be doing something along those lines. I still have this thing that Diamandi did play at 10 for it, or played an advanced role a couple of games last season, and I think I'm maybe getting to say so we should do that again. Have Sterling and Barron more kind of sitting, and have Diamandi up there in the kind of 10 role, because we'll have to be aware of the counter-attack here. We're playing against Dynamo Kyiv, who come from a country that is literally in the middle of a literal counter-attack. They are counter-attacking Russia right now. They are moving into the Kursk region. These guys are giving their lives to defend their country. We're at the thin end of the Putin wedge, where he's just trying to break up the entire. We've got Musk and Trump and all these kind of guys, and Farage and all that, all kind of financed by Russia, and doing all this nonsense to try and break down democracy and stir up as much racial hatred and whatever to get us all doing the job for them. But the thick end of that wedge is the front line against the Ukraine, the Soviet Union. God, what the Soviet Union did to Ukraine was even worse than what Russia's doing to it. But it's bad enough just now, and the guys are out there and they are literally counter-attacking just now, pushing over the border. They're going to have to come back. Russia are going to overpower them eventually, but what a fight they're putting up. And what a motivated team they will be, so we will have to watch out for them. We saw them the first leg. Dynamo Kyiv looked very counter-attacking. We reduced them to that in the second half, but they look like they're going to be very good at it. They've got a couple of injuries themselves. They had a nice win on Friday in the league. They won 2-1, same as ourselves. in the Ukrainian league on Friday. But of course, they're playing their home games in Poland. They've been through a hell of a lot, this team. And it's difficult to know if it's going to be, playing away from home again. Every game's away from home kind of thing is going to get to them. They're playing outside their own country. It's not like they have to move to a different stadium in Kiev, the same as we're in the equivalent of what we're doing. They're moving to different countries to play their home games. So it's difficult to know if it's eventually going to get too much for them or if it's strengthening them. If it's like this isn't a problem for them playing at Hampden. Like every game we play away from home, mate. So it's difficult to know. But we need to be on our toes, and I think we're going to have to, we'll be going for it, but we need to be careful at the back and protect ourselves, and that defence needs protecting, whoever's playing tomorrow. So I would like to see maybe Barron and Sterling sitting and having Diamondi going forward. Tom Lawrence, that maybe seems harsh on him, who's definitely doing a lot better than he has of late, because he's been injured for most of his time at Rangers, but scored a couple of goals against Union Berlin, had a really great 20 minutes or so in the second half against Hearts at Tynecastle, was involved in the goal we scored in Lublin last week, and did okay on Saturday. Very clever player, but I think he feels a bit kind of fragile. He has kind of lightweight games when against like Celtic at Parkhead or whatever. So I don't know if he's getting to a stage where he's irreplaceable at 10. Talk of having Hadji back in there, I think, is nonsense. I saw his goals against Derby County in that B team game, and they looked like kind of goals a guy who's just played for his country at the Euros would score in a B team game. He still looks unfit to me. He still looks too slow, even at that level. So I can't see him coming back. I think he's maybe burnt his bridges with the manager, but yeah, never say never. I don't know if he's even in the European squad. Would he be? I can't see it. And there's going to be no sign of Todd Cantwell either. He's gone, even though we haven't actually sold him yet. You've then got the out in the right. It has to be Czerny. It has to be Czerny starting. I think the fact they get brought off after 55 minutes the other day, and was still man of the match, which tells you all you need to know. I'm hoping that means he's starting tomorrow. Get the pace, get the tempo set early. He's definitely the best thing we can have out in the right wing. I don't mean that as any disrespect to Ross McCausland, who I hope is ready to come in and come off the bench, because there's no way Czerny's playing a full game. And this is a game tomorrow night, and I think we're going to win it on penalties. I think it's going to go extra time in penalties, and I think we'll win. But I think we will need Ross McCausland tomorrow. I don't know that he would start. I think Czerny's got to give us another start and doing much the same as he did against Motherwell in his first half hour to 50 minutes on the park, hopefully. On the left-hand side, the Cortez injury has mucked us up. I think Scott Wright only played on Saturday because the manager's trying to keep Hefty fresh. Hefty, the man from Fluminense, the Flim Flam Derby man, he's going to come on, I'm hoping, and start this game tomorrow. He was brilliant off the bench. He caused absolute chaos. He turned the game around. If it could be put down to any one man in that first leg over in Poland. So I'm really hoping he comes out and starts tomorrow night. And it's got to be Dessers up front. Danilo's got to appear at some point, you would hope, but I can't see him being starting in this game. But we're going to need to get back up in the striker department. Egamani, or whatever his name is, the fellow from Morocco, is one of these guys who's going to be fit someday. But I can't see him starting either. Well, the manager does like to throw in a wee fib every now and then to out-vibe his opponent, so you never know. But I think it's got to be Dessers tomorrow, who I think, if you want to include that friendly against Union Berlin, is now on 4-4, 4 goals in 4 games. He's on a bit of form, Big Cyril, in goal scoring, and he does the business, run about the box as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to us immigrants who get out of our unsafe home, doing the business again at our new home at Hampden, the place that's taken us in. I think I was down Leatherby Drive on Saturday. Hampden's one of the places that, from my house anyway, it's like going to your work. If you leave, if you want to get your work in good time, you're going to have to leave so early. There's no traffic, and you get there about an hour early to your work. But if you have that extra hour in your bed, you're struggling to get your work in time, and if one thing goes wrong, that's your whole day's out of business. And the same thing happens with Hampden. You're either in a queue, and watching everybody struggling to put their QR code, and you're like, get a move on, it's only kick-off, or you're there really early. And I was there really early on Saturday. I erred on the side of caution, and it worked out about 2:30. I'm walking down Leatherby Drive, and down Leatherby Drive, it's a kind of lesser known Susie Quattro B-side. And the first thing I noticed was, maybe because of the bus park, maybe it wasn't getting used the same way. I don't know, because it's a Rangers home. I don't know what it was. Wasn't as many supporters, buses going there or something. But the bus park, there's a big massive grass banking on the right hand side as you go down Leatherby Drive. It looks right over towards Lesser Hampden. It kind of curves around the back doors of the tenements. And I've stood on that a few times doing post-match reaction pods for Jersey after we've been beaten by Celtic in various games at Hampden in recent years. But on Saturday, it was really clear. It was a beautiful sunny day, and it looked exactly the way it did when I went to see Scotland against Ukraine. There's all these Ukrainian flags. When we played them when Scotland hosted them in the World Cup qualifying playoffs, the semi-final, Ukraine won 3-1. And it's because like the Motherwell support when the Rangers ended. I think it's a hangover from Scotland games. Must be organisation at Hampden, because obviously we're expecting away supporters to be in the Celtic end. And Hampden's one of the three grounds that does have a Rangers and a Celtic end. But the Ukraine fans were in that same bit, and the Rangers end, if you like, that night. That's where the international support, away supporters go for games at Hampden. And so they're all gathering. It was natural for them to gather on this hill. It was like Spartacus. I am Spartacus. It was they were all standing around this kind of natural embankment, and it's beautiful. They all had their gold and blue flags, and you'll see plenty of them tomorrow night. So I went and stood there on Saturday, and it gives you a great view into Lesser Hampden. The first thing you notice is it's a natural banking. It corresponds to a natural banking over the other side of Lesser Hampden. It was actually in the footprint of Lesser Hampden. It's been blocked off now as part of this new city stadium, the development of Lesser Hampden. But you're thinking, that's Hampden, just that the whole area just the natural slopes of the terraces at Hampden, which have just been really reprofiled. That's why I love Hampden, because it's the same shape as it is when it held all those record-breaking European crowds. And then you got Prospect Hill Road, a slope in itself, to get up Bolivar Terrace, and you drop down into Newcathkin Park, which was the second Hampden. And it's all got the slopes from three sides that are all tree-lined now, kind of landscaped. It's just beautiful. But the thing you notice in Lesser Hampden is they've got the lovely new stand. There's a lot of controversy, but it's not big enough, etc., for Queen's Park's needs. But the kind of funny bit, the joke bit, which is a bit unfair, is the director's box, which stands kind of on stilts almost, like almost like a Punch and Judy show or something on the directors, so they can get a view of the game on the other side. But that's because the Clinkart Road farm, the Clinkart Farm, the farmhouse, Lesser Hampden was built 100 years ago on farmland they bought from Clinkart Farm. There's a big farm on Clinkart Road. And of course, you'll know this maybe, one of the kind of pub bore things that the Clinkart, they used it, Queen's Park used it as, the Queen's Park strollers, the reserve teams used it as change facilities, the changing rooms in Lesser Hampden. But because Clinkart Farm had been built in the 19th century, it made it, certainly in Britain, they thought maybe in the world, the oldest building in use for association football in the world, because it went back. It didn't know when in the 19th century. But the thing is, when Rangers played in the second year, Rangers played in the European Cup. 57-58, we beat Saint Etienne, who played a European Cup final at Hampden, having beat Dynamo Kyiv in the quarterfinals, and we beat them. We played Milan, AC Milan, in the second round, and they beat us 4-1 at Ibrox in the first leg in front of about 80 odd thousand. So for the second leg, probably the most disrespectful thing that's ever happened to Rangers, most we've ever been dissed, was they didn't bother opening up the San Siro for the second leg, because they were through, and they were through. They did negotiate the tie quite easily after that 4-1 win at Ibrox in the first leg. They played us at the Arena Civica, which is an arena, I think it's quite near the San Siro. I've been in it. I did a trip to San Siro, as I say, back in the 90s. I think it was built not by Napoleon, but certainly in the time of Napoleon. I think it's 1807 it was built, which is probably older than the Clinkart Farm building. So Rangers have played in the European Cup, and what I think must be the oldest stadium used for association football in the world. Milan have used it a few times. Inter used to play league games in that there. They played European games there in the 50s as well, I think. But so it's just feel the history is what I'm saying, and also feel the immediacy of Rangers' need to get through this game, so that next week I can work on another list. That's the European finals, and we're up against 20 or Red Bull Salzburg at Hampden next Tuesday or Wednesday, because they're coming thick, they're coming fast. I'll be looking out for game number 151 at Hampden, but you and every other sane person on the planet can be looking for Rangers to get themselves one step closer to the cash cow that is the Champions League. It's going to be an epic tomorrow night, folks. Enjoy it. It's tonight.